Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And together we are 8/12 of the power, the full power of Unnatural Selection, which at its peak cannot be killed by mere mortals. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. It's a podcast about news that is occasionally humorous, but less and less so as the days wear on.
Yeah. Just as are we just getting sadder? Is that the problem?
I think we're getting older, so yes.
Yes. Right. Okay. Yeah. Potato.
Certainly, I wasn't as politically aware and active in my early 20s as I am now in my mid 30s. But I'm sure terrible things were still happening. But it does feel like things are uniquely bad in this current moment.
Well, yeah, that's where I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, not to derail us right before we get to the first story.
Let's do it. Adam's not here. We can do whatever we want. Okay, he can't.
Yeah,
stop
that's
us.
true. Yeah. Our like monument to let's refresh the point. People are trailing off. Like person is not here.
Our taskmaster is gone. So this is
the lunatics are running the asylum.
Exactly. Show's going to be a mess.
No, I've been listening. The Dollop are doing a 3-parter on Bill Clinton, and it's just been interesting, like listening to, because the cliff notes of Bill Clinton, like the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
Great guy, nothing wrong.
Like just all this sort of stuff, like being aware of and learning more as I've gotten older. But just being
there was the Whitewater scandal when he was, I think, governor in Arkansas, and
I didn't really know
property deals
much about
and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, didn't know much about that. So listening to that and hearing some of the most insane shit that is going on, like giving tainted blood to the whole of Canada.
Yeah, Behind the Bastards did a great series of episodes just on the tainted blood scandal and the sort of like alleged links between Bill Clinton, who was then the governor of Arkansas, and the sort of political protection that they might have sort of run for this scheme, where they were basically taking blood from prison inmates.
They were donating blood and didn't tell it. Like,
selling
they were
it
doing a blood drive, selling it on, did not disclose it was coming from a prison population.
Didn't test it, didn't all this sort of stuff.
Didn't test it. So Hep C, AIDS,
super fucked.
HIV, all this sort of stuff going through, and just like, and the fact that not only did it taint X amount of people who took part in the blood drive, but then they could unknowingly be passing it on to like just creating
and they were
reusing
the blood drawing equipment within the prison. So prisoners that didn't have these disorders were then contracting them from other prisoners, thus further polluting the blood supply. The whole thing is cool.
Yes. So hearing stuff like that, I'm just like, holy shit.
A lot of people don't know about it. The only reason I know about it is because Behind the Bastards did a series on it. That was the first time I ever heard about it.
But I think it was the point that Dave Anthony, one of the Dollop hosts, makes in their thing was like, because he's saying we're now talking about things that happened while he was in his early 20s, or I'm not quite sure how old he is, but like he was like, I was 50s, an adult at the time, and he calls himself a politics junkie, and was like, I was across this all of the time, and how insane it is. So seeing history being rewritten further down the line on Bill Clinton, with people being like, oh my God, look at Trump now. Like, oh, remember when things were sensible? Like when Bill Clinton was president, like how much that frustrates him. But it just made me think, we're sitting here with everything that's going on. We're going to get into that in a minute with all the crazy shit that sticking with the American politics, I guess. But with the Trump administration, and all that sort of stuff.
low level news consumers. We know you're out there. Strap in. It's going to get bad.
But just all that sort of stuff, and we're sitting here being like, this is bonkers, the most insane political time that has ever happened. And I think it just made me realize everyone's had that feeling, like that we have it in the sense of being like, this is the most insane. Like, we're the generation going through the most insane. It's like, well, while that arguably is true based on a lot of the stuff we're about to talk about, when it was Clinton,
there was other crazy shit.
Then that was the craziest time.
It's like global warming. This year is the worst year that it's ever been on record, and it keeps getting the worst year it's setting new records every year.
Yeah, and like people talking, with the genocide in Palestine going on at the moment. Like, I imagine the kind of news cycle and craziness we're seeing for that. It's probably what the Cold War was like at the time.
And there was
like,
World War II, and the American Civil War. There have been other crazy periods in political history. You know, the assassinations, political assassinations in the 1960s. Everyone thinks that they're living through the craziest time in history. The difference is, we are. Though we are living through the craziest period. They were also.
They were,
but we super are.
It's sort of like back in your day it was hard, but back in my day it was harder. But back currently in my day it's harder. But you didn't know that because you were back in your day then, and now we're back in my day now. Does that make any sense? I don't know. Anyway, it was just a thought I had.
Anyway, so speaking about how things are getting worse. Jimmy Kimmel, late night show, just generally Jimmy Kimmel. No, there's a lead in. It makes sense. Trust me on this.
Well, I thought the craziest thought is and speaking of how things are getting worse, Jimmy Kimmel's no longer on the air. That's such a strange sentence on its own.
Not because I'm a massive fan of Jimmy Kimmel or anything. Like, I've seen him hosting things or whatever. It's like I could kind of take or leave. Like, I don't think I've ever sat down and
he's all right.
Watched a full show of his. Well, he's all right. He's fine. But
he's gotten a lot better.
Sure. So Jimmy Kimmel Live, his program, late night show, which goes up against, the Late Show and other things like that.
Seth Meyers,
that sort of stuff, has been pulled from air by the US broadcaster ABC over comments.
Quote, unquote, indefinitely.
Indefinitely. Yeah, as a result of the, quote, insensitive, unquote, Charlie Kirk comments that he made on his show this week. So obviously a show being cancelled is not of the same level as, the war crimes in Gaza, but I think it's really dominated the news this week in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, just purely because of what it augurs for American free speech, right? And, the potentially febrile political environment that it further, kind of inflames, right? So it's a bit of a... So I went to go see, I saw this trending this week, and I went to go see the comments that Jimmy Kimmel made as like, what could he have possibly said that would have, caused this reaction from the MAGA right? And they were honestly pretty milquetoast. So this was, I think it was Monday night. He accused the, quote, MAGA gang of trying to score political points by characterizing Mr. Robinson, that was the alleged shooter in the Kirk assassination, as, quote, anything other than them. In between finger pointing, there was grieving, he said. I watched the comments. It seemed pretty anodyne to me.
He followed that with a joke of like there was grieving with a clip of Donald Trump being asked
the next day. How are you going in the wake of Charlie Kirk?
My condolences on the loss of your friend. Sorry, personally, how are you holding up, Mr. President, after losing your friend? And he was like, I think all right. You see these trucks building my giant gold
We're doing
ballroom?
The ballroom.
So making the joke of, Trump seems really broken up about this person he said was like a close personal friend.
Yeah, one of the key people for him winning the last election, right? Yeah, he just clearly couldn't give a shit about him at all because he's a narcissist. But I mean, so this is prior to information being released from the FBI, which demonstrates. So there was consternation in the media ecosphere about initially around, potentially it was a leftist attack on Charlie Kirk, and then there was some information that was coming out at this stage about, his associations with the online gaming sort of community and, Groypers, the Nick Fuentes thing, which we mentioned last week. Yeah, and so
the gaming community.
Potentially, I know, but the gaming community is full of like meme toting, shit posting meme lords, right? So
I saw a detail of that, of the FBI were like trawling his Steam account.
Yeah.
And they were like, he's spent 5,000 hours gaming in 11 years, 2,000 of those hours in Sea of Thieves. I was like, well, ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yeah. By the way, Sea of Thieves, great game to play with friends. But does not augur any kind of tilt towards extremism, I can confirm.
Yeah.
It's a pirate game. It's pretty cool. So So this was in the midst of that information just starting to come out, and then the media ecosystem was sort of talking about, he grew up in Utah. He was the son of a conservative Christian family. Like, it may not be that he was a left wing. This is before we had the information from the FBI suggesting that he was, more sympathetic to the left wing increasingly in the last couple of years, and the whole thing about his trans roommate who was conducting a romantic relationship with, and all that sort of stuff.
And I still don't fully buy a lot of that sort of. I don't know. It's anyway, but that's just me speculating. I don't know.
The current understanding of it is that he had taken a left wing sort of movement towards left wing extremism in recent years. That's the current understanding. Now, all of this is yet to be borne out in court. And as I said last week, I think it's personally irrelevant what the political motivations of the shooter are. It's, the more what causes people to be violent and act out in this way, and gun violence is probably like the key problem that the United States needs to solve. I think the individual's political leanings are almost irrelevant. Like I said, the guy who shot Ronald Reagan wanted to impress Jodie Foster. Like, clearly there are just like mentally ill people out there that do things for, strange, inexplicable reasons. That is less important than the systems that are around them that encourage violence. And as we talked about, a lot of things that Donald Trump and the MAGA, his MAGA administration and supporters have done and said to encourage an atmosphere of political violence, right? So I don't think these comments were even really that insensitive. But what happened is the FCC chair, the Federal Communications Commission, which is a political appointee, so he's a Trump appointee, Brennan Carr, told a right-wing podcast that Mr. Kimmel's remarks constituted, quote, the sickest conduct possible, unquote. He added that the FCC could move to revoke ABC's affiliate licenses to force the organization to punish Mr. Kimmel. Quote, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, unquote, Mr. Carr said. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take actions on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. So the key thing here, and I think the reason the story is blown up so much is, we know that, or at least heavily suspected that the Colbert Report was cancelled, which is finishing up in June next year, presumably because of political concerns around the merger that his parent company was engaged in, and
merging some channels and wanting to appease the people who have to sign off on
which is this guy, FCC chair Brendan Carr. He's the guy who would sign off on that merger, and so they sort of preemptively put the boot into Colbert as a way of appeasing that, and that merger did in fact end up proceeding after that. So
and following that, you'll remember Trump actually said, I hear Jimmy Kimmel's next.
Yeah. So
this was months ago. So there was already like sprinkling I'd like Jimmy Kimmel gone.
Seeding the ground, exactly right. And that's why it strikes me as a predetermined, a pretext. He's already preceded the ground with these sorts of, ideas that, these are the people who I don't like on late night television who make fun of me.
Yeah.
I want them gone.
As soon as there's an excuse.
And so as soon as there's an excuse, and they're really capitalized, don't let a crisis go to waste, as the saying goes. And, utilize this murder of a guy who is apparently your friend to, try and level attack against your enemies. And there's lots of talk in the MAGA sphere about going after George Soros and his organizations, any sort of left-wing organizations, really sort of using the force of law to go after these people and bring these organizations down. Now, again, I hasten to add, no evidence whatsoever that any of those organizations had any part in A, fomenting violence, or B, any connection to the shooter. So it's kind of like, well, how do you get from A to B there? It just really seems like a predetermined line of attack, and they're just using the assassination of Charlie Kirk as an excuse to go after their existing enemies list, right?
Yeah.
I don't think what Kimmel said there was out of line, but the thing that's really concerning...
And also not about him.
Like, no, it was about the MAGA supporters. It wasn't about Kirk at all.
Yeah. Like, what I was expecting was like, is this something you could interpret to him saying like, he deserved it. He had it coming. Or even that he was a piece of shit just as a person.
No, none
like
of that.
He was.
And he issued a statement saying that, political violence is bad, and, thoughts and prayers to the family. It's reprehensible that this guy was murdered, all this sort of stuff. Like he's said all the right things. But what this tells me is that unless you are in lockstep with Trump's MAGA extreme right wing, then you're an enemy.
For you.
Yeah. And because, Kimmel's parent company is also looking to do some sort of merger because media is not a profitable enterprise anymore, mainstream media, thanks to podcasts like us.
Us? Shit.
Well, not us specifically, but,
I didn't realize we were causing the downfall of quality entertainment.
Thanks to the medium of podcasting and other kind of independent, news programs and YouTube and social media, people are increasingly, not turning towards these mainstream channels, which threatens the model. And so increasingly what you're seeing is these kinds of mergers and consolidation so these organizations can survive in this new environment. And so there was a merger happening there, also threatening the affiliates. So the way the American media ecosystem functions is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a bit complicated, yeah.
So essentially you've got these groups, these affiliate groups, and they'll buy content, I guess, from ABC or from NBC to air on their television networks. They're the ones who own the networks. So Sinclair, which is one of these affiliates, was buying Jimmy Kimmel's content from ABC. But Sinclair, as I think we've discussed before, is one of these hyper-conservative, far-right-wing sort of groups.
Yeah.
And so
they do they air stuff like Fox News on steroids kind of ones, right? Like
very, very
One
conservative.
News? No.
OAN is a separate
OAN.
network, but similar kind of thing where it's like extremely conservative. And so, the affiliate groups like Nexstar Media Group and Sinclair announced it would preempt any kind of decision about Jimmy Kimmel's status continuing.
Yeah, stop buying it.
And basically stop airing it straight away and replacing it with other programming indefinitely. So when all of the not all of them, but like a significant number of these affiliate stations who are buying your content say that they're going to, basically boycott it, then the network really doesn't have much of a choice because the whole financial model goes away if it's not then being syndicated and sent out to all these other people who are paying for this content. So they were essentially bullied into, suspending Kimmel indefinitely. With
who says boycotts don't work?
Yeah, I know, right? So the thing that's really concerning about this is that it's clearly at the behest of the Trump administration. He's clearly pushing this. He's clearly directing it, saying, I want you to drop Kimmel because of what he said. And then media organizations are feeling compelled to go and do that. And any kind of fig leaf covering that this isn't Trump's plan is immediately revealed when he posts on Truth Social, great news for America, the ratings challenged Jimmy Kimmel show, it's not what it's called, Jimmy Kimmel Live, but whatever, is cancelled. All caps. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. Well, yes, Kimmel does have worse ratings than Colbert because Colbert was the highest rated
show.
Yeah, anyway. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers on fake news NBC. The ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC. So it's like any kind of fig leaf that you could put over this to say, oh no, it's a business decision. It's it's private companies acting the way that they want to act is completely, contradicted by this. Clearly the administration saying punish my political enemies, and the head of the FCC basically cheering it on and encouraging it. This is what when we talk about freedom of speech, these are all the freedom of speech flag humpers, right? Yeah. When we talk about freedom of speech, what we mean is the government doesn't act to suppress your speech, not consequence culture. I say a racist thing in public and then I blow up on Twitter for saying a racist thing and then, I get fired from my job. That's the cancel culture, all the stuff that they ran on for the last couple of years of, Elon Musk said, there's going to be a free speech absolutist on Twitter and all this sort of stuff. But it just reveals nakedly how hypocritical they are in that they clearly have no respect for the freedom of speech. They're just trying to suppress speech that they don't like, right?
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious that it comes from the anti-woke, freedom of speech brigade, that they're the ones like, great news, Jimmy Kimmel was cancelled. And it's like, hang on, weren't you guys the freedom of speech guys? And they're saying, no, it's consequence culture. This isn't cancel culture. It's like, no, that's what the other side was. Like the way they're just so happy to flip.
Literal cancel culture.
This is cancel culture and aided and abetted by the full force of the federal government. That is so much more sinister. When they talk about jackbooted thugs coming into your house, people getting arrested for speech, people, the government using the mechanisms of government to investigate people, to make their lives more difficult, to get them to lose their jobs. That is the threat to freedom of speech, not people getting angry about a thing you said on Twitter because it was insensitive, right? Just like this is the authoritarian scenario that you guys have claimed to be concerned about over the years. And again, I hate it. I hate this timeline because
Yep.
too often
I know what you're about to say.
I find myself agreeing again with Tucker Carlson when he's like, hey guys, like freedom of speech was meant to be important to us. And if you do, like if Pam Bondi says she's going to prosecute people for hate speech, which is what she said this week, and then sort of like backpedal a little bit, like that would be the worst thing for what we believe is like having, you know, laws that abridge people's freedom of speech in the First Amendment. Like that would be bad. Like just trying to remind people of their, the conservative right wing of their purported intellectual principles, such as they are.
I mean, hate speech, I get. His definition of hate speech is different to ours.
Right, surely.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be any restrictions on speech. There are restrictions on hate. Like the famous example is you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't use your speech to cause mayhem and violence, right? You can't encourage political violence. There's things that you can and cannot do with your speech already that don't abut against the First Amendment right to freedom of expression. And the fact that the party that literally campaigned this election season on getting rid of the woke agenda and you know, in freedom of speech, to be so quickly reversing themselves just because it suits them politically and corrupting the institutions of, you know, media and democracy in order to just score cheap political points against their enemies is just another step towards the authoritarian, you know, sort of endpoint that we're all hurtling towards. It's only been 9 months, not even 8 months, really, 8 and a bit months since he's been president. You know, Viktor Orban in Hungary and Duterte in the Philippines took much longer to get to where they got to in terms of authoritarianism than the Trump administration has in the last 8.5 months, right?
Yeah.
That's what's concerning to me. It's like
been sowing the seeds of it for the past 4 years,
Yeah.
right? 4 years in office and then
4 years in the wilderness to plan. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is what everyone was talking about with Project 2025 when all that sort of stuff came out. It's like, oh, yeah, they've spent this time figuring out how they can do it quickly.
Yeah. And they're
had a roadmap.
operationalizing it. That's the one thing about Republicans is that they've got terrible plans, but boy, can they operationalize their plans. Good project management happening over there.
Yeah, they can hit those KPIs. That Jira board is amazing.
Where are your tickets? What are you up to this week? How are you corrupting democracy? So on this note, Sinclair, that affiliate station, group of stations, said that they will air a Charlie Kirk tribute special in Jimmy Kimmel's time slot on Friday instead, and is demanding that the host donate to Kirk's family and his organization, Turning Point USA, by means of an apology, which is not how anything works. You can't just demand a blood price. Well, it's like you're going to donate to the guy's family. I could say donate to a charitable organization to demonstrate good faith or whatever. If he had said something horrible, which he hasn't. I mean, but like donate to us, just give us money. Otherwise we're going to, you know what I mean? Like this kind of strong arm tactics is very, very
It's insane. It's insane, but it's I guess that's how these negotiations can work there, right? Because they're also going on with, apparently Kimmel and Disney, owners of ABC, are already negotiating, like, how could the show come back? And so it's things like that, being like, this is what they're calling for, so you'd have to do an apology of this way or whatever. So who knows how those negotiations are going to turn out, if at all. But yeah, I mean, they can say whatever they want. They can demand whatever they want, I guess.
It's a crazy thing to demand, though.
Yeah.
Like, as a precondition to negotiations. That's insane to me. Not just that you'll donate to a charity, but like that you'll donate to his family. Like, give us money. Yeah. Give Charlie Kirk's family personally money. Otherwise, we're going to, to make your life difficult financially. It's just a wild thing to put out there. But that's America at the moment. Hopping overseas do we have anything else on that, or is that have we satisfied the free speech gods?
Yeah, I reckon we have.
It's just sad. It's just sad because like with Colbert and with other creators like this, it's sad because it creates a very chilled atmosphere. Jon Stewart on his show on Friday did a North Korea style. You're like, everything is great here. Donald Trump is the best, North Korean style sort of media gag. And like it is a gag, but like I do think if you work at one of these other late night shows or a comedy show that
It's a
talks
bit
about
like
the
that.
news, I think, you'd be really worried about your job and your prospects going forward if you keep making fun of the Trump administration. The point is to chill speech. We are going to, go after enemies on our enemies list, and then next time you'll think twice before you say something about us, right?
I mean, yeah, all the late night shows actually have, they've all addressed it in their own kind of way. So far, I feel like Jon Stewart's was the best because, it made the point while also being very silly and funny. The worst, I feel, being Jimmy Fallon's, where he was like, "Oh man, yeah, Jimmy's a great guy. I hope he comes back." And then did some shitty, just bad jokes about having to appease the president, and I was like, "Wow."
Brave.
Nice one.
Brave
nice
Fallon.
one, other Jimmy.
Super
but
brave.
I know we're all hanging out for John Oliver's, which will drop tomorrow.
Airing tomorrow morning our time, yes.
He being on HBO and having all he seems, there does not seem to be a ceiling for what he's allowed to do. I think he has never successfully been pulled up on anything. He'll be like, "You can't touch me."
I mean,
he will stick down the barrel and tell Trump to fuck himself.
HBO is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, who obviously has matters before the FCC as well. No one is immune unless you're like a completely independent podcast with Patreon subscribers or whatever. Nobody is immune from the kind of commercial political pressures in mainstream media that the Trump administration can exert. So I don't know. I think it's extremely worrying.
It's extremely worrying, but I know he won't care. He'll do it, and then we'll see what happens.
He said on his shows, he'll say a thing and then he'll say, and then again, my lawyers will have to stress that, I'll have to add XYZ to this comment and they've denied all claims or whatever. So it's not as though he's just a completely loose unit. Obviously, he is guided by what they're legally allowed to say.
Yeah. But he always does that though with the lawyers have told me that
with
I
a
have
wink,
to
wink.
say this.
Yes, yeah.
And then, put those two things together.
Yes. So, I agree. But I don't want all my favorite creators getting banned and then getting into the podcast space. It's already overcrowded as it is. Get out of here, guys.
Speaking of get out of there, Israel and Gaza.
Yeah, it's not good. So there was a groundbreaking report from a UN commission that concluded that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza.
Yeah.
In
the thing you've been seeing with your lion eyes, your eyes aren't lying.
And as we've talked about, we've discussed the UN Genocide Convention on the show before, and how, I'm certainly no legal scholar, but the majority of the criterion that establish the UN Genocide Convention are being met,
being ticked
by the conflict in Gaza. And so for a UN commission to come out openly and say this and be doing interviews about this, I don't know, in another era, it might have been like groundbreaking news. In this era, it just seems to be like one of 1,000 stories that are just washing over us like the inevitable tide of doom. But it will be forgotten. But I think it really is meaningful that you're getting UN commissioners on Zateo, which is an independent news outfit out of the US, Mehdi Hassan's outfit, doing an interview, a half-hour interview, talking about the ways in which Israel is perpetuating a potential genocide in Gaza. Like that is meaningful. It's not, when institutions within Israel, human rights institutions are also claiming that it is a genocide. I think the world, the world community needs to pay serious attention to these people, because they're serious people. These are not, one of these people, one of the commissioners, Navi Pillay of South Africa, was a judge on the Sudan, genocide investigation as well. These are serious international community people.
Rwanda? You mean Rwanda?
I think she talked about Sudan in the interview. She might have been on Rwanda as well.
Okay.
But it's. I could be wrong about that.
You're not casually.
Yeah, these are not casual.
An expert on genocide. That's not just a light thing that you do on Sundays.
These are serious people, not commentators. Is my point. Serious people in the human rights space. Pillay and Sidoti also both point out that unlike the Rwanda genocide, Palestinians in Gaza do not have neighboring countries they can escape to. Quote, there is nowhere that the people of Gaza can go to escape this slaughter, Sidoti tells Mehdi, and yet the slaughter has continued. It's...
Which is something that, like, I remember Jon Stewart sort of said it best a while ago, like telling, I forget at which stage of the war this was, but that they issued that Israel would always say, oh, we've issued like evacuation warnings, like we tell people in advance we're going to completely level all your livelihoods, and they go, yeah, but where are they going to go?
Yeah,
you tell them to go somewhere, that where?
Yeah.
They've
and
got nowhere to go.
This follows on the heels of the news this week that the Israeli military has launched a ground offensive to occupy Gaza, saying again, go south. We told you to go south, and then we told you to go north, and now we're telling you to go back south again.
Yeah.
And the problem is that Gaza really has been damaged to such an extent that there really is not a place for these people to go.
No.
Major cities like Rafah and others have been completely leveled by the bombing campaign thus far. And so, to launch a ground offensive is something that Israel has not done in this current conflict up until this point, not in any sort of like meaningful way. But what they're talking about is, 3,000 troops on the ground, fighting, street to street. Sorry, they're saying that they believe that there's 3,000 Hamas combatants still in the city. So I'm not sure how many Israeli troops are going to be there, but you would have to assume thousands. You're going urban warfare, fighting street to street, which is so much more deadly, even to the populace, than aerial bombardment. It's just it's just horrifying, right?
And it's
and to get both of these pieces of news. Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, they've already declared a formal annexation of the West Bank as well, so there's no reason to believe that they're not also dead set on doing this here. You've had Trump made a number of statements in the past saying that, like the Trump Gaza thing that we played, where they're talking about, sort of turning it into the Riviera of the Middle East and just seeing the whole thing as a hotel, resort development. Once you've ethnically cleansed all the people and pushed them out, then you can develop it for cash. The whole thing is just sickening. And the UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, called on Israel to immediately stop the ground assault, saying that evidence was mounting of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possibly more. Quote, I can only think of what it means for women, for malnourished children, for people with disabilities, if they are again attacked in this way. And I have to say the only response to this is stop the carnage. Yeah. Again, people at the UN, very serious people, but I mean, who's listening to them? What can they do? What can they, with the United States with the veto power, in the United Nations, I don't see even a resolution getting passed around.
That's for one.
It's just gross.
That's honestly crazy as well. Like I don't know, dude, like the whole point of like the United Nations, I don't know, to feel like the United Nations shouldn't just like, should be like a united, like a unity of nations.
Well, with any multilateral body, you're going to have
like the massive veto power.
You're going to have disagreements. That's why the superpowers have veto power. So all the other superpowers in the rest of the world don't gang up on an individual country and force them to do something they don't want to do. But it is.
Hey, that'd be really handy right now because we'd be forcing a country to not do a genocide.
Well, and this is, peacekeeping operations from the UN have been pretty limited in the past and limit in terms of how successful they can be. But we're not even getting that. There's not even talk of that. It's just like, return the hostages or die. And the current estimates have the current live hostage count remaining in Gaza at around 20 of the 250 people that were initially taken. So, and I tell you what, a ground invasion is not going to help those people who will almost certainly either be executed or will be caught up in the crossfire in these assaults. It's like it's clearly not about the hostages.
Crazy as well because
killing your own hostages.
You believe the hostages are, and you're just bombing the shit out. Like that's the thing. None of the reasoning or justifications coming, I feel, from the Israeli parliament and military make any sense to
No.
what they like. Their actions do not match their words, except when their words are slaughter them all.
Yeah.
Because we have heard them say words to that effect.
Yeah, there are ministers
is
within
chilling as
within
hell.
the Netanyahu government which have been using rhetoric that I don't know how you could classify it other than ethnic cleansing, genocidal kind of rhetoric, right?
Just crying for blood. Yeah. It's
but so both Hamas and the IDF estimate that about 350,000 people have fled Gaza City so far as a result of this, and with close to twice as many still behind. And you think about people who are too weak and sick to move, the old, the infirm, the disabled. There are just so many people that have been injured and have had limbs amputated and things like that during this war, which obviously can't move, can't just have a mass exodus. And I guess because there was a warning, Israel thinks it's okay to kill them or to have them at least get caught up in the crossfire now. It's just not it's not acceptable. Like they're destroying infrastructure, residential towers, water and electricity and like the things that a society needs to function.
Yeah. If they stopped tomorrow, what they have done is
it's going to make, and not to mention the starvation and all that sort of stuff, which we've talked about before, refusing the entry of aid into Gaza via a blockade. Like it really is, what we're seeing here, I don't think you can argue is an attempted ethnic cleansing at the very least. War crimes, certainly. Crimes against humanity, certainly. And obviously there's the topic of a potential genocide as well, which we've discussed. I just don't see any kind of off-ramp to this. It really does feel like they're just going to keep going until all of Gaza is leveled. That seems to be the point, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. It's either, until they have completely wiped Palestine off the face of the earth.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about this really last week.
Countries unite against them to stop them. Right. Those are the only two endpoints here.
It's as I mentioned, there's structural reasons why multilateral organizations are not good at doing this, right? Even though that's the whole reason that the UN was formed in the first place post World War II, right? But we didn't even really talk about this aspect, was that Israel launched an airstrike against Hamas negotiators in Qatar. So they were there for the purposes of, ceasefire negotiations. And, the Israelis are bombing it.
Qatar were mediating it, right?
Mediating, it's a third country. That's, and in Qatar, you think after a $400 million jet that they gave to, President Trump, that they'd be a little maybe higher on his priority list. But truly, it's weird because he's the most corrupt president of all time and also the least corrupt in anything that you buy him. Clearly doesn't do much. Doesn't do much to, like he'll change on a dime for, thanks for the whole $400 million jet. Like I'm still going to, it's unclear whether he authorized it or whether he was notified when the missiles were in the air and it was too late to do anything about it by the Netanyahu government. But like clearly had some sort of pre-notification, didn't try and stop it far as we could tell.
Yeah, so. I thought the conversations that I'd seen quoted were that, we were told about it when it happened. Like essentially like within just 10 minutes or something of it happening.
So you think about that and it's like, okay, if you, Israel as a country was interested in coming to a negotiated end to this conflict, you certainly wouldn't be assassinating the other side's negotiators, right? And that's not the first time that they've done this, right? And to do so in a third country, like if Hamas had done this, bombed a site in Qatar where Israeli negotiators were for the express purposes of killing them because they're senior leadership of the opposing organization, that would be rightly described as terrorism, as using violence, for political ends to achieve political ends. And yet for some reason, to do so in a third sovereign country as well. So like it could be rightly considered an act of war by Qatar. And it's just out of the headlines immediately. It's just no longer a point of discussion. Like that is incredibly significant that Israel is seemingly happy to conduct, broader scale military operations against third sovereign countries that are hosting negotiations is just like unconscionable. But, they just
wasn't that something similar that kicked off with them in Lebanon with Hezbollah and stuff as well, was like they had some tangential thing of being like, oh, but Hamas something, bang, and then that kicked off that whole thing. I was in Qatar when it happened, transiting back to Australia, and I think it further, exemplifies how little impact it seems to have had in like the global kind of scale, in that we didn't notice. Like we were transiting. I think it happened about 30 minutes before that my wife and I landed in Qatar for our like layover traveling back to Australia the other week. And we only found out that the country we were in had been bombed 20 k's north of where we were, boarding the next flight, which was hours later, and we were in the queue, and the TVs were on with like Al Jazeera or something playing, and it said Israel bombs Doha, and I was like, what? I did a double take because I was like, oh,
wait a minute, I'm in Doha.
Well, yeah, I just looked at that being like, oh, have they blown up another hospital in Gaza or and then I reread it and I was like, wait, that's where we are. What? And like, no delays to flights, no like panic in the airport that I could see. I was like, it's like it didn't happen. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's all right, guys. They gotta get it out of their system. Don't worry about
it's like unless like there was an announcement in Arabic about it to like not panic or to like everything's fine, that just wasn't translated, that I missed or something.
I mean, when 9/11 happened, like air travel in the country of the United States was shut down for days, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I was frankly amazed that we were allowed to land if it was 30 minutes after
who knows?
country being bombed. I mean, I guess you'd want to be getting people out of the air as soon as possible, but like airspace did not seem to be impacted. Like, bonkers, like absolutely bonkers that the country that I am laying over in was bombed.
It's getting bombed as you're
did not impact my travel back home. Like what?
It just shows how de rigueur it is, seen by other Middle Eastern countries that Israel can just like indiscriminately attack. It's not. Initially, I think the concerns were that it was going to kick off a broader regional conflict in the Middle East, all this stuff with Israel and Gaza. And I think the US's involvement has really pacified the greater Middle East to go, okay, well, obviously we don't want to get on the wrong side of the United States. So we're just going to kind of, we might send some missiles back and say, oh, this is a retaliation and it ends here. But like no one is willing to go to really, to go to war against Israel as a result of these provocations, and I think that's got to be because of the US's involvement, right?
Yeah, the US protection. Yeah,
it's
terrifying,
it's incredibly concerning when any potential off ramps, a negotiated, ceasefire solution, when those people are being assassinated multiple times. It's not the first time this has happened. Like, how do you ever see an off ramp to the conflict? It just shows that there is no internal idea from the Israelis that they don't want an off ramp, right?
Well, no, their off ramp is we get all the land those pesky Palestinians are gone. Like
it seems to be. I don't know what other conclusion you can reasonably come to given the circumstances, right?
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting. This wasn't an article in the rundown, but that the UN General Assembly is tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, Keir Starmer
Tuesday our time
of the UK and other countries, France and Australia, are set to recognise
Albanese's there,
Palestine
like
as a state.
all that. Yeah. So there'll be to push that motion we've been talking about for a while, where different countries have said, oh yeah, we're going to recognise Palestine as a state at the next UN General Assembly. That's in a couple days, and the US has already been like just making waves, at least to Australia, like us reading Australian news that sort of said like, oh, there's been just little hints that they're saying like, don't you do this or there'll be trouble. So
I mean, they're joining 70 something other countries. The point is that they're developed, rich Western democratic countries that are signing on for this. But again, like Keir Starmer, I saw a clip just this morning of Trump and Keir Starmer where he was saying Hamas is going to have no part of the governance of Palestine going forward. It's like, okay, so I understand that Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. I'm not even I don't dispute that even, but it's like they are the governing authority in Gaza. They are tied into the
Mm.
politics and the operation of the region. So it's like, how do you recognize Palestine without then
Without
also
doing that.
recognizing Hamas to some degree? It's not really clear
Yeah,
how that's...
unless you were going to do the ground offensive to take over the country and establish a new democracy, which has always worked great
in the
every
Middle
other
East.
time.
Yeah, every time we've
that,
tried it, it's
people
worked
have
out
done that.
so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So switching gears, heading over to Australia, how cooked are we, Tom, with regards to climate change?
Right, I was going to say, yeah, let's move away from the sad stories and go to the fun one.
And let's go to the existentially sad stories that are sad, but on a broader scale.
Yeah. Well, not great, George. So the National Climate Risk Assessment has sort of published its latest findings.
And it's all good. Don't worry about it. It's great.
It's all great. Unless you are one of the 1 million homes that they're saying is going to be at very high risk by 2050 and rendering them effectively uninsurable, which I think is going to be an interesting little detail of this, because with climate change, you know, we've all talked about rising sea levels, and so therefore like the places that'll be underwater or greenhouse gases, all these sorts of things. But talking about, let's just talk about this purely from a financial standpoint. Maybe they'll finally fucking do something.
That'll get the neoliberals into action. It's going to affect your dollars, guys.
That'll do it. So, yeah, the findings were, alongside a loss in property value of about $611 billion by 2050, and this is under a scenario of 2 degrees average temperature warming.
Which is where we're headed.
Which is where we're headed. I thought 1.5 was like there. That would be the best case scenario, but 2.
Yeah, we're not going to get to 1.5. Yeah, they're hoping that we can reduce it to 1.7, 1.8 with additional action. But on the current trajectory, we're headed to 2 degrees.
Heading about 2, 3 would be very bad.
Catastrophic.
Just to contextualize it for the listeners. So they're saying like $611 billion maybe in property value being lost, which I think will kick some people into
gear. And that
gear,
doesn't even take into account like the strain on federal budgets from additional disaster relief, lost productivity, drops in tourism. Like what we're looking at here is a pretty conservative estimate of what is going to happen. And the results long term for the Australian economy and other economies elsewhere, I'm sure, are disastrous. And in the context of this, insurance for regular homes, not even at-risk homes, is going to become incredibly expensive. And the thing that people...
they're going to have to offset
the way insurance works is pools of risk. Is that you have 100 homes, and maybe once a year, one of those homes goes up in flames, but the risk is spread out across all of those other 99 homes. And
so that one homeowner doesn't have to pay $1 million a year in insurance and everyone else pays $10. But if one home becomes 5 homes, then all of a sudden the insurance for that particular at-risk cohort becomes very expensive or maybe even completely unaffordable. And the premiums for the rest of the cohort, the other 95 people, also becomes more expensive because they need to make their profit on top. So the more the risk increases, the more the damage increases, the more expensive insurance gets to obtain. And ironically, because insurance is such a key part of protecting capital investment with regards to building and things like that, like when you get a home loan, for example, when you buy a house and you get a home loan against that house, one of the requirements, at least it was, at least it was when we purchased this place, is that you have home and contents insurance on the house because the bank wants to protect their investment in your house, right? It's the bank's kind of like it's the collateral on like a loan that they've given you.
So when you think about how this affects the cost of capital, what developers need to build places, part of those costs include insurance. Part of and if it, obviously the cost of labor, the cost of materials, whatever. But investment firms will not make capital investments if they are too risky. It changes the risk profile. It changes how much they make off that investment if there are all of these additional costs in the supply chain with regards to creating new homes. And given that there's already a critical shortage of supply of homes in Australia, which is why they're at all-time highs. Like we said, with climate change, this year is the worst year for housing affordability, which will only be eclipsed by next year and the year after that. given that
Stretch goals.
given that there's already a shortage, anything that comes that disrupts the additional supply of homes into the market is only going to further increase prices, further increase, the pressures on cost of living. So if you know
also,
the insurance,
building the homes in those like dangerous areas, it's not just like, oh, you need to insure your home in case, so that the people living in it have to worry about a bushfire. It's like, what about a bushfire while they're building it? What about a flood while they're building it? It'll shrink the amount of areas that we could expand housing supply.
And this is how you know that climate change is not a myth. Not that anyone who's listening to us needs convincing, but when the insurance companies, when the actuaries, the people who assess risk for a living, all agree that it's going to get more expensive in the future because of these risks, then they're putting it. It's in their financial models now. The additional risk that's coming later, it's not just some conspiracy of all the scientists got in a room and said, we're going to pull the wool over their eyes, guys. All of the scientists in the world in a large global conspiracy. That's obviously not what's happening, because other areas, finance, business, the commercial side of things are acknowledging this as a reality going forward. And it augurs, really bad times ahead for our economy, but also the global economy. I would not be surprised if over the next couple of decades we see some sort of climate change related, mass exodus of people from certain areas, global refugee crisis, global financial downturn as the result of the impacts of climate change. And I think obviously we need to put as much as we can into prevention and green technologies. And I think the government's announced whatever it is, 62 to 70% reduction on 2005 levels, 62% to 70% reduction on 2005 levels, which are higher. So it looks better to have a reduction on those levels rather than the 1995 levels that everyone else uses. But also it doesn't take into account all of the fossil fuels that we export, that we dig out of the ground and send elsewhere, sell, coal and fossil fuels and gas to other places for them to consume and create emissions elsewhere. So yes, we're investing into the green economy, nowhere near enough, but we're also now needing to start talking about, insurance companies potentially prohibiting building or rebuilding in certain areas, like entire communities just being eviscerated, wiped off the map because they're just too dangerous to build there. They're in a floodplain or too high bushfire risk, or it's not worth building back up there. And other kinds of mitigation efforts, we're sort of past the point where we're talking about prevention as being the only strategy. We need to talk about investing in mitigation to help communities avoid the worst effects of what we already know is coming.
Yeah.
Which is bad.
Yeah, so it's a scary assessment they've dropped. It was a very bleak one for them to put out there. But I think the fact that they're focusing, as I know, just to get people into action, when we just talk about there'll be more floods or the weather will be crazy and stuff like that, that people go oh, okay, yeah, all right. That's bad. Yeah, cool. Okay, I understand. To be putting it more on the for the actual the people who can make the decisions, putting it all into about the economic impacts and stuff like that, I think is great. But then also, to phrase it like you just did before with your 100 homes example, to be hey, here's how it's going to be economically impacting you.
Everyone,
just
all of us.
You not living in a bushfire zone.
Yeah, you can be
living in a flood zone.
You can be in an area
of the city.
Exactly.
In your flat in Docklands.
Your insurance will now be more expensive because you're covering the additional risk on other people's insurance, right? It affects everyone.
It's going to be healthcare all over again. Yeah. Why am I paying someone else's insurance? Yeah. Why am I paying someone else's healthcare?
Yeah, and there's been serious talk in the United States. There's been a lot of reporting on this of particular states and maybe even federally having the government as an insurer of last resort. If places are unable to source affordable insurance for their homes, well, maybe the government needs to step in and assume additional massive financial risk in order to try and backstop the industry from sort of going up. Or because insurers, if it's not profitable, it's a private entity. So if it's not profitable
they won't
for them,
do it if it's not making them money.
Exactly. So you've got examples in the US of insurers just leaving regions entirely. They go, well, it's not making us enough money to be here, so we'll just leave. So now the remaining options are even more expensive because there's a lack of competition in the area. And so you might have the government that needs to come in and assume additional risk. And who's going to pay for that? Taxpayer has to pay for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, then it just hits the taxes, doesn't solve your problem.
And then you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars of extra liability that the government's going to have to put on its books that it didn't have to before because we had a functioning private insurance industry. Yeah. So, yeah, it really bodes very badly for the future, given, what's likely to occur and the fact that we're just not doing enough to stop it, but B, definitely not doing enough to mitigate the effects of what we know is coming. And I think the conversation needs to shift more from investments in renewable energy, more to what are we going to do to mitigate these effects when they happen. That's a conversation that's not really being had enough as far as I can tell.
Yeah. And it's not like scientists have been telling us to have it for decades.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll get our subs and everything will be fine. That's definitely the best use of, $400 billion odd dollars in the short term.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But it's okay. Everything will be all right because teenagers definitely won't be on social media.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank Christ.
Thank fuck. No, actually, they probably will be because, all right, we've been talking about this story for a while since they announced it. But, for those of you not in the loop,
Senior tech reporter, take it away, Tom.
Starting December 10 of this year, thanks to some legislation passed last year and sort of taken to this most recent election as an election promise by the Labor government, social media companies will have to have taken, quote, reasonable steps to ensure that users under the age of 16 will not be on their social media platforms. So your Facebooks, your Twitters, your Instagrams, your Snapchats, your YouTubes.
Yeah.
You put your hand up, George?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, but the key part of that is there's no legally enforceable effectiveness standard. So
correct.
The way this is being discussed... And
that's further what they've announced is that they're like, they've revealed the rules, and the rules are kind of like, we can't, there's no standard we can enforce to make sure you're doing it. So you have to tell us what you're doing, and we have to consider it reasonable, but we also can't, there's no this technology is consistent enough and, consistent enough and can be enforced by us. There's no minimum standard that can in writing be met. And they've admit that. The government have now admitted, look, God, you just got to say you're trying, okay?
But also, the communications minister, Annika Wells, is saying that, so this is the quote, with the support of regulatory guidance being published today, there is no excuse for non-compliance. We are not anticipating perfection here. These are world-leading laws, but we are requiring meaningful change through reasonable steps that will seek cultural change and a chilling effect that will keep kids safe. They've also, the safety commissioner...
Saying the chilling effect is the point is a little concerning. Especially from what we talked about at the start of this episode with the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, the chilling effect being the point.
So they're talking kind of out of two sides of their mouth on this one, because they're saying, there's no legally enforceable standard, but they're also saying, a court is able to impose fines of up to $49.5 million for breaches if these platforms aren't taking quote unquote reasonable steps. So it's we're not mandating that you be successful in removing everyone that's under 16 from your platform. But at the same time, we're also saying there might be massive fines if you don't. But also there's no real sort of enforcement mechanism to make that happen. Who determines what reasonable is? I would
love to see what a judge thinks of that, being what do you want me to do here? Just sitting up there in your robe being wait, so you want me to rule on whether or not they are doing enough, but you can't tell me what enough is.
Yeah, it's exactly the kind of muddled sort of, watered down policy outcome that we warned about on this show when the guidelines were first announced.
And we're dickheads. These guys are lawmakers.
I don't know shit about fuck. It really seems and there were, sort of talk about, okay, we're going to have government ID being the requirement, having that sort of validated, and then that was taken out. And then it's okay, well, we're going to do it based on AI, and they've run a bunch of trials, and that doesn't seem to be a
14-year-old was 38.
35, yeah. So that doesn't seem like a particularly effective way of doing it, technology-wise, at least at this stage. So now they're just putting it back on the social media companies to say, "Oh, you got to make sure it's no one under 16." Well, how are they going to do that? Who knows? And there's no real way to compel them. But also, fines are still on the table. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It does seem very muddled. And maybe it is because they took it to the election and they've spruiked it so much that they're forced to sort of like go ahead with something, the government.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It seems like. It's like they just got to barrel ahead with something regardless.
Yeah, it seems to me like the only part of this this legislative agenda that is concrete is the December 10 date. Like everything else, they were like, we'll figure it out. But like, hey, we've locked in a date. We good? We good with December 10? We good with December 10? All right, great. That's lunch.
Why does it come like with anything else with government? They're like, oh, it's got to go. We've got to do a feasibility study. We'll kick it to a committee and come back to it in 3 to 5 working years. Like everything else, it's like, let's undertake our due diligence and make sure we get this right. The government famously moves slowly with all this sort of stuff. But with this, they're just like, December 10, baby, let's fucking go.
Yeah, because like, I don't know. Yeah. How long have we been calling for stuff like, oh, you need to raise like the general like unemployment benefit and all this sort of stuff, and they're like, oh, we really gotta like think about this and we got to do modeling and all this sort of stuff. And fuck, they can ram this kind of dystopian shit through
when they want to. They can, they can move fast when they want to, when it's something they care about. And for some reason, they care about this, even though, by all accounts, it's going to be a
shit
bit
show.
of a dog's breakfast. I really don't understand the urgency here.
I reckon it's because of all the like. You see other commentators saying things like, "Oh wow, like Australia's going to lead the world with like,
I think it's
doing to try and prevent like harm coming to teenagers in the age of social media that we've all been talking about for the past 20 years." Like, I think they've been loving that kind of praise, that being pioneers of doing something for the kids,
and it's inspired similar legislation elsewhere in the UK and other places. So I think that's definitely part of it.
And that's been famously going great. It's been going great. Everyone's really happy with the fact that they have to show government ID for every website they log into. And that they use side funny like meme story. Have you seen that people have been... Because I think in the UK, with the whole age verification kind of thing, you have to upload a picture of yourself.
I'm not sure what the specifics are, but that sounds
You have to upload like a face shot. And people have been taking photos of the main character from Death Stranding 2, Sam Bridges,
which is an animated character,
the likeness of Norman Reedus, and uploading that, and it works.
And I saw that.
You're old enough. Or people have been using the game Gary's mod, which started as a modification of Half-Life 2, so it has like assets from like the mid-noughties, and you can make them pull weird balked faces, and them just go like, and they put up those pictures. And it works. Like it's
the technology is not where it needs to be in order to do this via a technical solution alone. And so if the government wants to do that, I'm not even saying it's necessarily a bad thing to restrict the use of social media to people over 16. Like I'm not even like disagreeing with that necessarily. Conceptually,
there's arguments both ways that I find compelling.
I think having read some of, as a book I started and still need to finish, The Anxious Generation, which talks about the use of social media and smartphones and the effects it has on young people's mental health. It's clear that there's a correlation there between negative mental health outcomes and the use of these technologies. So to the extent that we can delay the uptake of these things with teenagers, I think that's probably to people's, to the good of the community. And we can see what it's done with, even with adults, and the way it's rotted everyone's brains with regard to polarization and politics. But as far as I'm concerned, it should be banned for everyone. But it's I'm not even like necessarily in disagreement with the intention, but the way this is being rolled out is just messy and bad. It's not going to achieve what they want it to achieve. And it's just going to result in a bunch of tech companies collecting even more biometric data on us, presumably.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, bad. It's just bad. It's just not
IDs.
It's just not a good way of rolling it. The intention is probably good, but as with all of these things, the devil's in the detail, especially when it comes to, technology companies and algorithms. And like, I really just think the government has not gotten good advice. They don't know how to do the thing that they want to do well. And so that's what's resulted in this policy kind of devolving, sort of decaying over the last 12 months, right? So it's incredibly concerning, and I don't think we've got a good answer. And I don't have faith, unfortunately, that the government is going to sort this out correctly in time before December 10th. I just really don't.
Oh, hell no. Yeah. Like what? I work in software engineering and developing solutions for different like situations. That is like, it is September currently. Like we're talking 3 months.
Yeah. How many sprints? How many sprints to create a revolutionary technology, Tom?
Not enough, and especially when, as you're developing said revolutionary technology, you will find problems down the track. Like, you can analyze a project as much as you like, that you still can't guarantee that while you're doing it, you'll be like, oh crap, this conflicts with that system in this way. And
there's ethical considerations which don't seem to have been reasonably considered. There's the technological problem of actually rolling it out. There's the unclear legislative policy pathway. This just seems like it's going to be an absolute disaster, and I don't think anyone is prepared. So functionally, what they've said at this stage is we're increasing the minimum from 13 to 16. Like, is that really just what we've done with regard to social media? It just doesn't seem like it's any more compelling than that.
Terms of service or whatever, they're always like no one under 13. Yeah, so I mean, at best, that's what we've done. I think at worst, we'll create an absolute shit show of like data gathering and just
mixed incentives and just very average effectiveness in terms of the policy. I just I don't know why, as you say, they're just like barreling ahead with this, introduction date as opposed to spending more time and getting it right. Yeah. It just seems so
I guess we have
silly.
Created over decades sort of a culture of that as soon as politicians sort of admit that maybe what they're doing is not quite right and they need more time and change the plan, we're all like, you flip-flopping pieces of shit!
Yeah, but I don't know. There's a way of doing it that says, hey, we've run some... That's the whole reason you do a pilot, that you do these pilot studies is so you can get the information and iterate and improve the outcome. And if you know, at this stage that you're not going to be able to meet your deadline, the smart thing as a politician is to own up and say, look, we've tried this. We're going to wait to get it right, and we're not going to release it until we get it right. And I think if you took ownership of it, people would be a bit more sympathetic, rather than just like hitting the deadline, the thing rolls out, it's a shit show, and then everyone's already waning confidence in governments decreases further.
I mean, look at Robodebt, right? And Robodebt was a terrible
perfect
idea just from the jump. But that they just sort of did it. They just did it without even doing it right.
Because the political incentives were there, right? but the incentives to actually to get it right weren't top priority, obviously. And
and they were like, cool. And then we do all this harm. People died, and but all right, no, it's all right.
It's all right. We'll do a royal commission. Learn some lessons, get some recommendations we'll ignore, and then just make the exact same mistakes again in a couple of years about something else. Yeah, it's just broken.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But you know what? Maybe the AI should just be making the laws for us. Maybe that'll make this just much easier.
I am all for AI text generation. I really do think that is a useful technology. Passing large-scale data out of passing information, useful information out of large amounts of unstructured data for the purposes of generating text seems like a very useful technology to me. I see the utility of that and how it can be used.
Very useful tool. The creation, like the way that you create it, is kind of fundamentally unethical.
Well, I mean, there's
train the models,
and there's lots of court cases going on in the United States between the New York Times and other publishers with OpenAI disputing exactly this, saying, hey, the way you obtained our content was unethical and perhaps illegal.
Every book ever written and all that sort of stuff.
For whatever to train these models. But the thing is, OpenAI and other AI companies seem largely to be winning these lawsuits. Because the output,
use, are they?
I'm not sure what the arguments are in each case, but the output is substantially different from what's being ingested. And the argument, I guess, that they're making is that it's not like we're taking and reproducing your book for the purposes of selling your book as much as it is a raw data input that we're feeding into a model that then creates a completely different output, right? Anyway, we're straying from the point. I think there are some some very legitimate, potentially economy-changing effects of text generation and chatbots.
Oh, there are AI tools that are useful.
Absolutely.
The actual end result tool is useful.
As soon as we start getting to image generation and video generation, which seems designed to break the information space, that sort of stuff, no, not so much.
And
that really concerns me.
Destroy artists and
it doesn't seem to be a good reason for that stuff existing, as far as I can tell. But it's good that an AI-generated minister in Albania will now be deciding all of their procurement activities, apparently. So that's AI to the rescue.
The AI can make the laws. Yes, you heard George right.
Yep.
An AI government minister was appointed in Albania. What? I saw that and I was like, no, fuck off. No, what are you talking about? No, and so let's just start quoting from this ABC article here, just to get the picture. A new artificially generated minister has given its inaugural address to Albania's parliament, defending its role. Interesting that it had to defend itself in its maiden speech to parliament, as, quote, not here to replace people, but to help them. So yes, the minister's name is Diela, which this is translated to the word sun in Albanian. Sun as in the star, not as in your child. So what was it? Some have called me unconstitutional because I'm not a human being, Diela said. They appear in a video address as a woman.
They've got an AI-generated woman and AI-generated voice. Who knows where the text that was spoken for that voice came from? If that was AI-generated, none of that's clear at this stage.
Yeah, no. So, was it let me remind you, Diala said, the real danger to constitutions has never been the machines, but the inhumane decisions of those in power. That's deep, bro.
It's philosophy 101 level deep there.
Yeah. Deep.
Last week, Edi Rama, the Prime Minister, said that the AI would be entrusted with all decisions on public tenders, making them, quote, 100% corruption-free, and every public fund submitted to the tender procedure will be perfectly transparent. Needless to say, that is not how machine learning works. It can't distinguish corrupt individuals from not corrupt individuals. I guess it can assess plans and see how likely they are to be to devolve into corruption, but it's certainly not going to provide a 100% transparent process. And the AI, all an AI does is evaluate something and, can make a recommendation.
Based on the data set it has.
Right. It's not an independent actor. It's not a person. It can't query things. It's just like you're just feeding tenders into a model to get a response rather than having a procurement infrastructure, which doesn't necessarily lend to less corruption, right?
And it doesn't have, yes, there are AI models that are called thinking models, but it doesn't make the same kind of decisions and assessments of what you put into it that a person would. The technology does not do that. We call it artificial intelligence, but it's not intelligence.
There are functionalities that have additional reasoning capacities and things like that as well. But again,
and could query the internet or things like that as well.
It's not it's not a person that can the thing about large language models and how they work is it's just maths. It's just a prediction engine. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy, and what is the next most likely word to come after that? Dog.
Yeah.
And that's essentially a microcosm of how large language models work. They're prediction engines based on maths. This sequence of words, mathematically, statistically, most likely ends in this. So it's not really a question of how do large language models get things wrong. The question is, how do they ever get things right? Given that context, it's not like they're evaluating for accuracy or, as you say, they might fetch information from internet sources and summarize that and say, actually, the broad consensus is something different to what I've just outputted. And so there's that sort of stuff happening in the background. But it is not some kind of genie in a bottle technology that people seem to think it is, right? Like, that's just not how the technology works at its core.
And it's not ready to be a minister. People are barely ready to be ministers.
They infrequently are ready to be ministers.
Yeah. It's crazy. Have these people never consumed any form of science fiction?
No sci-fi, no iRobot, no Asimov, no nothing.
Yeah, hearing Prime Minister Rama say that, it would make those decisions, look at those tenders and make them 100% corruption free, and make them transparent and everything. Yeah, putting your tenders through, and let's go with an intelligence for a second here, through an intelligence that can be changed. That's the other weird part of it, right? That I don't want to drop too many spoilers for some recent TV shows, but going off these ideas of creating consciousness, creating artificial consciousness or transferring consciousness from a living person to a mechanized one, and exploring those ideas of, is this now mechanized one? Is it actually their consciousness, or have we just created an AI that sounds a lot like them? And,
the way machine learning works,
but then they can tweak the brains.
Yes,
that's
it's all about
the
parameters.
TV show I'm talking about. They could go in and edit the memories and thoughts, so then you've fundamentally changed the priorities of that AI.
Yeah.
So this,
so there's
this
two
making
things.
it corruption free, this thing that you can change and update and tweak its priorities.
It's not what the technology is built for.
Yeah,
the AI,
it's not.
What we call AI, machine learning, is trained on two different things. It's trained on the source material. Here's examples of work, and it's trained on parameters, things that we, the developers, have tweaked within the technology to say, do this, don't do this. Right. Yeah. And so you see the rise of ChatGPT 3, 4, and 5 as the models increase in complexity, and they increase in terms of parameters, how many millions of parameters they have, and how many, trillions of words are fed into the system to train it.
Yeah.
They're not expressing what we as a society would call a judgment per se. It's just a black box. You put input in and output comes out. And the fact that we've managed to tweak those parameters to the extent that the output that comes out actually does seem to mostly relate to the inputs is frankly a miracle of science, right? But what it isn't is like HAL from 2000. It's not an artificial general intelligence that can make assessments, and it's just a stats machine. It's just a really souped up stats machine that predicts outputs, and that's why you have things like they call it hallucinations, where the output sounds really good. If I ask ChatGPT to tell me how the growth of bacteria relates to the speed of light, it will provide me a 3-paragraph essay that sounds like it makes sense. It is all horseshit. So the value of artificial intelligence models are asking it to query reliable data, whether that be verified online sources, and then summarize it and come up with something that accurately captures, a distilled idea from those sources. That's where it's most successfully used. Asking an AI or expecting an AI, so who's going to work the AI? The AI is not going to operate autonomously. The whole concept of what
I hope it doesn't operate autonomously. That'd be catastrophically worse.
You absolutely need a human in the loop to verify the outputs of what this machine learning model is providing. So the technology doesn't work how he says it works. It's not going to do what he says it does. And C, even if it did do what he says it does, it wouldn't do it effectively. So it's like the whole thing is just
what are we doing,
a publicity stunt from start to finish, is just to show that they're on the cutting edge, or maybe they want some press to say that they're doing better on their corruption metrics. There are plenty of legitimate ways to address corruption in the country. This, I don't think, will be one of them.
No.
On that note, we are on that incredibly bleak note. That was meant to be the happy fun story. That was meant to be the dessert, and it ended up getting sad as well. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist, at Unnatural Show. And make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Threads at tom.heath.
And you can follow us all down to Albania, where we'll be testing out the absolutely foolproof procurement model that's now been instituted in Albania. Can't lose. Full eyes. What is it? Full eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Friday Night Lights.
I was going to say, I do not get the reference.
Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We'll see you next week. Everything's great. Everything's getting better.
Everything's perfect.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's all wonderful.